Wade, where are you? Where are you?
Whoa, hey man, what's up?
Mate, what were you fucking thinking?
Hey, don't come in here attacking me. Calm down, what's wrong?
What have you done to my Levi's? You've cut the crotch out of them.
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
I'm on the sex offenders list now. I went outside, I got dressed this morning in the dark, had no idea. I decided I'd go commando today. There were some girls out the street pointing at me. I thought they were pointing behind me, so I ran after them. I thought there was something chasing us. Sure enough, I get fucking arrested, mate.
Well, yeah, but I was gene splicing. Like, what's the big deal?
You've ruined a pair of $200 jeans.
Wait.
I can't believe that you would do this. This is not what I meant when I said gene splicing.
You spent $200 on fucking jeans? Man, you should be fucking arrested. That is sick. Shame on you, Byrne. Shame on you.
How hard this was to research and try and sound genuinely like I was doing work. I don't like how this is going.
Sci-gasm.
Morning, Wade. What's happening today?
Oh, not much. I've got my cup of coffee and I'm feeling good. Ready to talk science.
Some science. Well, today we're going to be unzipping your jeans.
Yes.
This whole episode was for that pun, I've got to say.
I know. For the last 6 months, you were like, oh, I really want to do an episode on unzipping jeans. How cool would that be?
Yeah, and I've made that pun, I realise I had to do about 3 or 4 hours worth of research to find something interesting just so I could fit it in somewhere.
Oh, God, you put way more effort into this show than I do.
Oh, no, it's all right. I think you put a lot of effort in.
Oh, thanks, mate.
Yeah, no, you're very welcome. I enjoy your episodes.
Thank you.
Not as much as mine, but I do enjoy them.
That's all right. No, I think that's the general consensus amongst most people.
All right, so jeans, what are they? I think we all have pretty much a vague idea of what jeans are.
Well, one of the things that I find confusing, and I get tripped up on, are things like DNA, genes, chromosomes, chromatin, all that type of stuff. I find that kind of people get tripped up with that type of stuff, and a lot of people don't understand the difference between, say, a chromosome and a gene.
Yeah, that's true. We'll start at DNA. So DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, is basically just a chemical. That's pretty much all it is, a bunch of atoms stuck together. It's a really big, complex chemical, but at the end of the day, it's just a chemical. Inside that chemical are little, flavors, if you will, and there's 4 different flavors, and how those flavors are arranged in a sequence is what we might call a gene. So the flavors are A, T, C, and G, and how they can arrange themselves creates essentially a protein. Now, this gene section, this section of DNA, makes up one small part of a chromosome. And a chromosome, us as humans have 46 of them, 23 pairs. You get 23 from mum, 23 from dad. But there's a whole range of other stuff. And on top of these chromosomes, there's whole sections of DNA that aren't really genes. We call them junk DNA as well. And that's all tossed into. So I can understand where it gets a bit confusing.
Yeah.
But essentially when we're talking genes are just the code for making you.
So they're like the rungs on the ladder, like the order of rungs on a ladder. So, like you see those crime shows, they're like, we've matched the DNA to the dog fuckers, DNA.
What crime shows are you watching?
and then they'll go, and that kind of double helix molecule, that twisted ladder shape that comes up on the screen, it's like, that is not how it works at all.
Yeah, that's right.
But for the American public, let's make them think that that's how it works.
That's how it works, yeah. So one side of that ladder is a sequence.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you cut the ladder down the middle of the rungs, you'd end up with 2 sides. One side of that ladder might be a gene, and then you have a complementary side. So they all pair up as well. And that's just how DNA works, basically.
Yep.
And then the genes are the things that code, and there's a whole lot of complex shit that happens, and this code gets translated into a special kind of protein, and the protein does whatever it's supposed to do. That's where you get.
Are you referring to polypeptide synthesis?
I am referring to polypeptide synthesis for all those playing at home. There you go. There's a bit of trivia for you.
Yeah.
Sound that out. Now, the cool thing I reckon about genes is that all the DNA code is the same for every organism on Earth. We all have the same code. So I can take your genes and stick it in another organism, and it can still be read the same way and make the same protein.
Haven't scientists come up with a 5th?
Apparently, yeah. They stuck a 5th base in some bacteria and it was able to replicate. But I don't know much about that. So let's just pretend.
Okay, let's just pretend I never mentioned that.
Yeah,
all right.
I'd have to look more into that.
Right.
I'm worried about the genes we do know.
Okay, cool. And unzipping them.
Yeah, unzipping genes. But the really intricate understanding of human genes started way back in 1990. There's this super expensive project called the Human Genome Project. God, they've got such uncreative names, don't they?
They do, they do.
You know, and the whole aim was to sequence all of the DNA in humans. And initially, before the project started, we estimated that humans have somewhere between 50,000 and 150,000 different genes.
Okay,
So
that's a
genes are
lot.
code for, yeah, it is. And it took 11 years. So 1990 it started. It wasn't until 2001 when the first draft of this project was produced.
I still remember hearing that on the news, saying, "Oh, they've mapped the Human Genome Project. This could be the end of disease," or this.
Yeah, it was made out to be a huge
Yeah.
deal. It got published in Nature, and at that time, about 90% of it was mapped. And then they finally completed it completely, got to 100% in 2003. Now, this whole project cost billions and billions of dollars. It was an international project, so it involved a number of countries, which is really cool, I think, as well. And like, you read a lot of things online that's been likened to the biological equivalent of the Apollo missions, or the space race, if you will.
Yeah.
For a whole lot of people trying to get to the moon. And it was a big deal. Now, after all the mapping, we found out that we have about 20,000-ish genes, not the 50 to 150,000.
Well, that definitely, they would have been happy about that, cutting down the workload significantly.
Yeah, that's right. Well,
It's like the boss saying, "Hey, file these," and you think that you got, say, like 100 different things to file, and there's only like 15, 20. You'd be like, "Fucking sweet!
Yeah,
I'm not
sucker.
going to fail to go to the pub."
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'd just keep filing so it looked like I did a really hard job and I was just taking my time. Just refile and refile. But imagine that, like when you have a look at the number of genes, we thought we're a really complex organism. We must have heaps of genes. Turns out we have less than a potato.
Yeah, we have less chromosomes than a potato as well.
There's lots what we might deem less complicated organisms with far more genes than us. So
Yeah.
anyway, each their own, I suppose.
Yeah, those potatoes probably can do stuff that we can't, like
Yeah.
photosynthesize.
Yeah, that sounds pretty complicated. Or turn into vodka.
Well, turn into vodka, yes. Ferment.
The greatest vegetable there is, the potato. Fries,
It is,
vodka.
yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it? Good on it. It can
You
be
can get-
classy.
it can
you
be
can really
class-
slum it. You know? The vegetable for all
A
men.
vegetable for all men and women.
Now, the thing with the Human Genome Project is we had the sequence, the entire human DNA sequence. So we had the map. But once we got the map, we really didn't know what each gene did. We knew the order of all the bases, all the DNA, but that doesn't really mean much if you don't know what the genes actually do, what they code for. So we then had to sit down and started to work that out. And we're still working that out today.
So has there been much found? Like, has it been worth, like, well, this way, is it just one of those things where, like, look, we've mapped the human genome. It's like, well, what does it do? Well, we don't know yet, which I'm not saying that it has to, but what I'm saying is, are we using that information already, or are we still trying to work it all out?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been really helpful for things like evolution, so we can see how related we are and what genes are common between us and other organisms, and that gives us an idea of when the gene would have evolved. It's also useful for things like disease, so the most commonly looked at genes in humans are usually to do with cancer. Most of the genetic analysis is cancer related. There's also other things where we can look at where certain diseases exist in us and not in other organisms, and we can have a look at the specific genes involved and why that is too.
One of the things I find really interesting is when they go back through the DNA and they can actually see where viruses have ripped through the human population. I think that's
just
so cool.
stuck
It's like-
themselves in.
Yeah, it's like a little kind of timeline of disease. I thought that was so cool, where you can see where, you know, you have like RNA injected from viruses now kind of leaving its mark on the human genome for the rest of time. I think that's so awesome.
That is, it's trippy, isn't it? There could
Yeah.
be genes that we carry that turned out it was a virus from way back when.
Yeah.
And the virus has actually helped us out.
I know there
See,
was
the flu's not that bad.
Well, there was some speculation that the first cells, the first living things, actually didn't have DNA. It depends what you classify as living. They actually had RNA. Because RNA is actually easier to make, requires less energy than DNA.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so ribonucleic acid, which is RNA, requires less energy than DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. So there's a hypothesis out there that RNA may have been the first.
Well, yeah, the thing with RNA is it evolves quite quickly because it's not as stable as DNA as well. It gets substitutions and mutations more often than DNA.
And just so listeners know, that's what viruses primarily use, isn't it?
yeah, RNA. I think there's some viruses that use DNA. I might
I'm
be wrong
sure
with
that
that.
there's always exceptions in biology,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Absolutely.
for the
but
most
RNA
part,
is
I
pretty amazing.
believe that the ones that we're familiar with,
Mostly
the
RNA.
Yeah.
The idea is like a pox virus might have been the first nucleus of a cell. It moved into a membrane. And because it contained the DNA, it found a more stable environment inside a phospholipid ball. And then
Phospholipid bilayer.
Yeah, there you go. Well done. Moved inside there, and that pox virus sort of might have been the beginnings of the first nucleus for a cell.
Wow,
Or a eukaryotic
that's cool.
cell or something. It is.
That's
It's
cool.
kind of weird. Anyway, moving on.
Yes.
Now, the thing is, when we started doing this Human Genome Project, like you were saying, it turned out it was way more complicated. Once we got all those genes mapped, we're like, yeah, let's wipe out disease. Now they've been looking at it, they've realised, oh shit, there's all kind of things, what we call epigenetic factors, so you can turn genes on and off. Mm-hmm. So it's got a little bit more complicated. And we also found huge sections of our chromosomes that we call junk DNA, that we really don't know what they do. At first we thought they were just kind of leftover or echoes or something that might have done something at one point that doesn't now.
It's like telomeres, isn't it? Which is like the end point of the DNA. What they thought that was junk DNA, but they're now finding that it's...
Yeah, it sort of helps. It might contribute to aging. But the thing with junk DNA is we don't really know. Some of it might do nothing. Some of it might be important.
Yeah.
So we're not sure.
It's kind of funny that they call it junk DNA because DNA itself, when it was first discovered, was actually considered useless.
Yeah.
They didn't know what it did. They're like, oh, it's just... Yeah, now they
some
realize
sort of weird
it's
acid
like,
floating around in the cell.
It's like the blueprint of everything that happens, in your body from a cellular level.
Yeah, no, it's kind of weird when they look at... There's a really muddied history of discovering DNA structure in that as well.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, when they started looking into cells in the first place, it's amazing how far we've come from this idea that I don't know how it works to right down to this intricate level of how genes can actually completely manipulate everything from something like your eye color to even your behaviors. It's incredible. It is.
It's kind of funny that the more we understand about biology, the more we realize how complicated it is, even with like psychology or even just genealogy and stuff like that, where we have a look at it and we realize, hang on, it's not just the genes, it's the environment that it can influence them, and as you said, epigenetics, where genes can switch on and off. So it's way more complicated than we could ever imagine.
It is. It's super complicated. Now, the cool thing is that now we're starting to look into these genes and understand what they do. If you discover a gene, pretty much like everything in science, if you discover it, you get to name it. Now...
Oh, name it Burns a dick gene.
Well, in theory, you might be able to do that, but unfortunately, also like things like IUPAC or the IUCN, if you discover a new species or a new chemical or anything, there's a list of rules you have to name it by. So you can't really call it Burns a dick, unfortunately. Now, the governing body for naming genes is, hang on a minute, it's the Hugo Gene Nomenclature Committee, or the HGNC, and Hugo stands for the Human Genome Organization. So there's like an acronym in an abbreviation then.
Oh, okay.
So,
and by the way, congratulations to Karen Bonder, who named that Leonardo DiCaprio bug.
oh yeah, that is kind of cool.
Yeah. Well done, Karen, if you're
Well done
listening.
to Leo as well.
Yeah, well done,
Getting
Leo.
a bug named after you.
Yeah, apparently he put it as his Twitter profile, the picture of the bug.
So he should.
Yeah.
Karen Bonder, if you're listening and you feel like naming a bug, I've got quite the exotic name. Feel free. There's my permission for you. Now, going through this, the HGNC, I've got to say, their rules suck. They're
really?
shit. Yeah, they have to have only letters and numbers in the name. They can be no more than 6 characters. They're limited to brief abbreviations of descriptions of what the genes may actually do, and have extra restrictions based on like things that have already been identified. So sections of chromosomes, if your gene happens to fall in a certain section, you might have to give it a certain name already.
Oh, that's shit.
It is a bit
It
shit.
should be free game. Just
It should be. Now, this is all the human stuff. So, like, for example, there's this ATP binding cassettes. So that's like a family of genes. So there's a whole range of different genes that basically move ATP around. Okay, and ATP is the
energy.
energy, right? Where's it made?
In the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell.
So these guys move that ATP around. Now, the thing is, because ATP is really important for a whole lot of processes, there's this huge group of them, okay? And the groups are divided into subfamilies recognized by the alphabet, so subfamily A, subfamily B, subfamily C. And even in those subfamilies, there's the individual genes they call members. So there is this ATP binding cassette transporter subfamily C member 4 gene that plays a role in inflammation and replication of like RNA and DNA. It's found in a whole bunch of organisms, us and like heaps of different organisms, but it's given the shitty name ABCC4. That's the name of the gene.
Oh, that's shit.
Yeah, incidentally, it's found on the 13th chromosome.
Oh, good. Excellent.
There's a lot of shitty naming things.
That's crap. That's not interesting at all. Like,
No.
there's seriously a major communications problem right now with science and the general public.
Huge.
We need to be naming shit like just like the go fuck yourself gene.
Something like that. All of the human genes have these shitty names too, like all these random letters and stuff. Luckily, though, that's for human genes. there's these researchers involving flies, fish, and worms, and they are not bound by these rules.
That's like they need to do something to entice people to study the genetics of flies and bloody microorganisms as opposed to humans. Everyone's like, I want to study the human genome, I want to cure disease. It's like, really? Are you sure about that? Well, over here in this lab, we can name them whatever the fuck we want.
It's really cool, actually.
Sold.
Yeah, these are where the creative guys in biology obviously gravitate towards, honestly. Like we've talked about the Sonic the Hedgehog gene.
Yes.
So the Sonic Hedgehog gene was first found in flies. It was observed to lead to growth of spikes on the fruit fly's back, like Sonic the Hedgehog.
That's
So
cool.
where it got
That's
its name.
rad.
Now, in humans, the gene's important in the development of fingers and parts of the brain and things like that. But its abbreviation when we talk about the human is SHH. Because they named it first in flies, they couldn't change the name when they found the human. So when they had to name it in human, they had to call it the SHH, according to the rules. Now, it was the first gene named in the family as well. So pretty much all the genes that are in that family are now called hedgehog genes. So we've got desert hedgehog, DHH in humans, and we've also got Indian hedgehog, IHH as well.
What's the Indian hedgehog?
I'm not sure, actually, but they're just the names. Now, the people who discovered the Sonic the Hedgehog gene, which is actually quite an important gene, won a Nobel Prize for it too.
Wow, did they?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So fucking around with fruit flies could get you a Nobel Prize.
Yeah, there you go. And
Yeah.
good on them. It's like, it's good to see kind of a good sense of humour.
There is.
Sonic
The
the
fruit
Hedgehog
fly
gene.
guys, they rock it out. Homeobox genes, you heard of homeobox genes or Hox genes?
No.
Really, really important genes that guide the development for pretty much every single eukaryote on Earth. So they're the complex cells on Earth.
Okay, yeah.
So basically these genes tell us which is your head and which is your ass. It sort of guides the development and segmentation and all that kind of stuff. They found a gene in fruit flies when mutated versions stopped the development of the heart. So they called it the Tin Man gene. The Wizard of Oz, right?
Yeah.
Now, there's an equivalent in humans, and they've called it the NKX2-5 gene. I know, right?
It sounds like a shitty bloody... I don't even know. It sounds like some sort of gaming keyboard or something like that.
Oh, it is. It's some cheat or something like that.
That's crap.
Now, I think they started to click on that they have to rename them to make them appropriate for humans. So I love this one. They found these two genes in mice and flies, and they kind of work together to regulate RNA production. The scientists really here worked hard to make sure that they could name them according to the official standards. So they found it and they discovered, and the first one they called the responder to meiotic drive 2. And the other gene is the component 3 promoter of RNA-induced silencing complex. So when you shorten them, they're the R2D2 gene and the C3PO gene.
That's amazing.
Yeah. They've done well. They've really snuck that in under the radar.
That's good.
Yeah, I like that one.
Great. Good on them.
Yeah, there's another gene in zebrafish called the Dracula gene. And this is cool. They name that because when it's mutated, it causes red blood cells to burst when they're exposed to light. Just like a fucking vampire
That's so
would.
fucking rad.
Yeah. Now, the thing is, the reason that happens is because when zebrafish are born, they're actually transparent. Their skin's transparent the first few days of life. So they get exposed to light. If they have this mutated gene, their blood cells literally burst. They lyse.
Oh, God.
Which is kind of trippy. Now, this discovery was closely examined by a paper in the year 2000 in the journal Current Biology, and they actually found a similar gene in humans. And this gene in humans leads to liver diseases, and it's associated with the FECH gene. Now, what they found is that this mutation in the FEC gene.
The FEC gene.
You're fecked, okay, basically, yeah. Now, what
So
they
we're
found is the mutation that leads to bursting blood cells in fish actually is really close to the mutation in this FEC gene that leads to liver disease. So if they can actually work out the way to manipulate the gene in zebrafish, it might be only a very short step to be able to manipulate a gene using things like CRISPR and correct this whole range of diseases that are caused in humans by this FEC gene.
Wow. That's cool.
It is pretty neat, isn't it?
It's so awesome that there's this kind of this platform or this basic kind of building block of all life on Earth, and by understanding one thing about it, we can understand an array of things that affect us and plants and animals. Just because it's all based on, it's all done by the same rules.
Yeah,
you know? That's fantastic.
Yeah. Now look, going back to when I looked at these names, I'm like, why the fuck can't we name ourselves with these rad gene names?
Because that fucking Hugh guy.
Yeah, the Hugo. The Hugo Nomenclature Committee has gone to great lengths to ensure these names don't make it into the human genome. Now, their argument is that if you're a doctor, you don't really want to tell your patient that you have an issue associated with the lunatic fringe gene. So they have to change it around. They say, it's better if you say you have an issue with the LFNG gene. which,
Yeah.
I can kind of get. Now, that lunatic fringe gene controls the development of things like our rib cage or our spine and things like that. So if you have a
Okay.
problem, it's a serious problem.
Look, I can understand that.
It's
I
like,
can.
okay, fair enough.
But like, if you have the Sonic the Hedgehog gene, I'd be like, doot, 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 like
Yeah.
imagine like the Mario. If you had like a Mario gene. I'm sorry, you've got the Mario Kart. What was it? What was one of the tracks on Mario Kart? Bowser's. You've got the Mario Kart Bowser's Castle gene. Doot, 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 doot.
Actually, it's funny you mention that because with fruit fly scientists looking at these genes, there was a bit of a playoff after the Sonic the Hedgehog gene where people started naming them after Nintendo characters.
Oh, that's
And it
right.
became like a Nintendo versus Sega in the naming of genes for a while there. And Hugo had to step in and go, look, you idiots, it's great you're finding genes, but when we transfer them across to humans, we can't keep naming them after video games. Okay? Can you calm down?
You've got the Toad gene.
It's like X-Men.
What does that mean? Oh, you've got an extremely small micro penis.
Yeah. All right, well, let me go through some of these. Oh, can you imagine getting that gene? Oh, that'd be the worst gene.
Yeah. Imagine.
The micro penis gene. What's it called? The cashew. Oh, dear.
The very large clitoris.
Well, yeah, let's get... Actually, it's the same gene that controls clitoral development versus penis development. So there you go.
Isn't that like how
It's on the
certain
Y
types of
chromosome.
sex change can happen? They
Yeah.
do something to the clitoris, which
You might like this. The reason that we are males is because a bunch of genes on our Y chromosome control our development after about 6 weeks. Those genes are named the SRY gene. Sorry. So basically, from the moment you're conceived, in 6 weeks you start developing into a male, you're already sorry.
oh god,
Don't tell me you haven't had to apologise to your wife at least 3 times already this morning.
that's true. You've been here. You're here.
All right, let me go
Sorry,
through.
babe.
Let me go through some of the really cool genes that we actually have. Now, they've got shitty names, obviously, but some of them actually do amazing things.
Okay.
So there's this ACTN3 gene, and there was a 2003 study in the American Journal of Human Genetics, and it found that like this specific gene was associated with elite athletes. They found that specifically sprinters versus endurance runners had either a homozygous copy of the gene, so they had 2 copies of the gene, and this gene was in a higher proportion in super elite athletes, like Olympians
muscle
and things
fibers
like that.
and
Yeah, it
something
controlled
like
like fast twitch muscle fibers and things like that.
Wow.
Now, what's really cool is they actually found that this gene, if it was fast twitch muscle fibers, was generally with men, but there was more endurance slow twitch muscle fibers in women when they had it. So there might be actually little differences in how genes interact with your sex as well as everything else.
Oh man, that's so many factors.
It gets pretty complicated. Imagine having that gene. That'd be handy. So literally, athletes could be born and not made.
Yeah, well, I guess that's the whole thing that people are scared about with biotechnology is that what happens if they make superhumans? It's like
We might already be doing that.
we might already be doing that. Like, you did marry the person, you would certainly do have an attraction to the person you're married to. And the fact of the matter is, it's kind of funny because if you look at it from like an evolutionary standpoint of view, you want, generally speaking, and I'm not saying this is the case all the time, because I have seen videos online that would suggest otherwise. But but people generally want someone who appears to be healthy, who's obviously got all their limbs. Like, it's just a natural kind of thing. That's what we find attractive. There's that symmetry on the face and stuff like that. That attractiveness, that kind of the healthy skin and nothing really kind of wrong.
Well, we
with them.
certainly control genes of pregnant women as well. If you're having a baby and they do pregnancy tests and they found it has, say, Down syndrome, that's a high chance of termination. I think something like 90% of people, when they find out that their fetus has Down syndrome, terminate.
Yeah, so we kind of already are
Controlling our genes.
controlling, our population and things like that.
In a way.
We just need to do something with the intelligence now.
That's right. That'd be good if we could select for that.
Yeah.
Although you and I might not be here in that case.
That's very true, actually.
Now, there's another gene. I would love this one. This would be pretty cool, I reckon. It's the LRP5 gene. And there's mutations in this that can mess with bone density. And that can lead to things like osteoporosis and things like that. But there's also variants and mutations that can lead to increased bone density. And that can lead to things like unbreakable bones. And there was a study in the New England Journal of Medicine has shown that these people that have higher bone density and that bone breakages are extremely rare in their family, if at all. And this is even after significant trauma like car accidents and things like that.
Oh. So like, is there any negative side effects to that type of thing, or is just you've just got very strong bones?
It does lead to increased things like bone lesions, where you get extra bone growth sticking out of the edge of bones and things like that. But if you don't have those lesions, or you can get them shaved off pretty regularly, you've got basically unbreakable bones.
Oh, you're like fucking Wolverine.
Yeah, that would be pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Just, hey, watch this, just run flat out and stuff.
Go on. Try and break my arm.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, you'd be so good at arm wrestling and stuff.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know how much money you'd make as a professional arm wrestler.
Have you seen the guy who's like the world champion at arm wrestling?
Oh yeah, he's got that one right arm.
He's got one right arm. Imagine the jokes that are made. But I think is it a genetic condition?
I have no idea. I find it funny that you'd have one right arm that's huge and one left arm that's not. Even if it is a genetic condition,
it's funny that you'd have
there's
one
clearly
right
training
arm.
that's gone into it.
It's like, well, it's just a matter of perception. But,
Yeah.
yeah.
If I turn sideways, it looks like I've got one right arm.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. That bones, not unbreakable, but like less likely to break bones.
Yeah.
That's cool.
There was another study on in Science, actually, in 2009, and it looked at the HDEC2 gene, and this is responsible for regulating sleep. And what they found is there are some people who are able to function with a variant of this gene with about half the amount of normal amount of sleep. So they could get by and be fine with 4 hours of sleep and function.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
How much shit could you get done with only 4 hours of sleep and still be okay?
Well, that's the thing. They're still very confused as to why we need to sleep for the amount of time that we do.
Yeah.
Like
And we
obviously,
sleep less than animals too.
Yeah, well, giraffes sleep far less than what we do.
Do they?
Yeah,
that's cool. I didn't know
they
that.
sleep significantly less than what we do.
Dogs don't apparently. Jesus.
Yeah, my dog just fucking sleeps. And it's only like 3 kilograms. Got weighed at the vet the other day. It was like 3.6 kilograms. I'm like, you are the sweetest little thing. And the vet went on to tell me that she's got a bit of plaque on her front teeth because generally they don't chew with their front teeth. It's used for strangling their prey. And I'm like, this thing does not kill anything.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
I
more
reckon
worried
she could
about.
get a lizard.
I don't know. She's
Maybe
just,
not a big lizard.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. See, like even we're worried about her outside with medium to large size possums. But the vet informed me though. She said that well, you don't need to worry
eagles
about
flying around.
Yeah,
or something.
I know. Well, that's the thing. There was was it a tawny frogmouth? Just watching, I'm like, you fuck off from my little chihuahua. But apparently, brushtail possums don't. Sorry, this is a bit off topic, but apparently, brushtail possums are known to eat meat, where ringtail possums don't.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Brushtail possums by eating meat, is that like insects and stuff? Or I can't see them eating small rats or anything like that.
No, I'm not sure, but just the vet said you don't worry about ringtails, more the brushtail possums that you should be
Ringtails are
worried
cutie pies.
about.
Brushtails get angry.
Yeah.
Ask a New Zealander.
What? Why?
Because brushtails are an invasive species over there and they're really
Are they?
aggressive. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, they can shoot them. You're allowed to shoot brushtails in New Zealand.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Something new every day, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, ringtails are way cuter anyway.
I don't know. What do you think about going back to these genes? If you could have a gene mutation, what kind of mutation would you like to have?
I'd have
Bone claws.
I'd want a gene where I can find out the truth. No, I don't know. I guess it would be if I had a gene. Oh man, I don't know. I wish you asked. I wish you got me to think about this a little bit longer.
Prime, I just want to put you on the spot. I don't know either. A lot of these studies are single studies as well.
The ability to I guess the ability to regenerate limbs like Deadpool.
Yeah, that would be pretty good.
Yeah, that's probably what I'd be into, like the axolotl
healing.
gene.
Yeah, that'd be pretty handy. That would be great. I don't think there's that variant on our gene exists anywhere.
No.
There's certainly faster healing genes, but nothing like Wolverine or Deadpool.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of the research on genes is actually from Nature. A 2017 study tended to be associated with cancer. So when they're looking at specific genes, they're looking at more how they lead to cancer, how they can be affected, or how we can change to prevent cancer, and all that kind of stuff. So genes for really cool shit, the studies are actually few and far between. Genes for cancer, plenty of studies.
Yeah, I reckon as well, genes for balding and stuff like that, or some sort of female thing that they don't like would get all this funding. This, the beauty kind of therapies and stuff like that. What they're interested in, I reckon they get heaps of funding.
Yeah. Genes for bigger boobs or
pouty
lips.
Pouty lips,
long eyelashes.
Yeah, greater skin retention and stuff like that. And I reckon that would have heaps of stays into it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think I feel like that'd be cheating.
Yeah, true.
What if there's a gene they could suss out with like heart disease? Because that's still the biggest killer in the Western world anyway, for big fat asses.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things. It's like, could you imagine if there was someone who, like, imagine if someone finds a cure for AIDS, okay? HIV, AIDS, and some sort of vaccination or something like that. They would be touted as one of the greatest scientists to ever live. Heart disease and by the way, just so listen, I'm not kind of diminishing HIV research and stuff like that. What they're doing is absolutely fantastic. It's come leaps and bounds. But it's kind of funny because heart disease kills more people. And science here's how you can significantly reduce your chances of heart disease. Don't be a fat ass and eat a whole bunch of fast food and fried food.
Maybe go for a run every now and then.
And just do regular exercise, eat right, and drink plenty of water. And everyone's like, oh.
I don't want to do that. That's hard.
Exactly. And it's like...
I don't even like vegetables.
Yeah, I know. It's incredible. It's like we already have the cure for,
significant preventative measures for heart disease.
Sorry, not cure, but preventative measures for heart disease, which is the most common killer.
I suppose you could argue condoms are a pretty good preventative measure for AIDS as well, though.
That's true. Yeah, I guess. But I don't know. I find it very very interesting that we already with heart disease, we could cure heart disease. Well, we already have preventative measures that can help significantly reduce your chance. Don't drink, smoke, eat fatty foods. But where's the fun?
Yeah, that's right. Well, why don't I just die? Who'd want to live an extra 20 years not drinking and smoking?
Yeah. Spending time with their family outside with their kids and grandkids. I'd rather be inside watching the football, having a beer.
Yeah, fair enough too, whilst eating a pizza.
Yeah, and smoking some fags. Yeah. Do they call them fags in the US?
I don't think they do.
Oh, sorry, that's cigarettes.
Wade isn't a homosexual. He's not talking about smoking men. He's talking about smoking cigarettes. Just for our American listeners.
Sorry, I'm not sure if you guys over in the US call them. We call them fags over here. So,
fags is a very different connotation there. So when you mentioned smoking fags, all the US just went, wait, that doesn't cause heart disease, Wade, you monster.
Yeah, you homophobic wanker. No, fags over here. They actually used to sell fakes. Remember they sell fake cigarettes as well?
Fads. Yep, I used to buy them as a kid to be cool.
Yeah, and they had the paper
like
on
musk
the outside.
Sticks or something. Yeah.
No. There were ones that were actual...
white, but they were made out of musky stuff, weren't they?
No, these ones were chocolate, and then they had the paper wrapping, and it was edible paper. And you'd have them like that in your mouth. I'm on a podcast, but and it's actually you'd actually get them and you'd actually bite them and eat them as if they were a cigarette. They were totally designed, so kids could mimic their parents smoking.
Yeah, okay.
I remember having them when
I'm glad they got rid of those. Yeah, I remember having them too.
I'm surprised they were even around when I was a kid. It's that's a little bit too far, even in the early 90s.
Yeah, that's true. Although that's a really great way to manipulate your genes is by smoking a lot.
True.
Yeah. Probably not for the best. You're not going to have, unbreakable bones from smoking.
So I can't get
vision,
cigarette, yeah. All right, well, Byrne, thank you very much for that episode. That was lovely.
No worries. Should we zip those genes back up now?
Oh, yes, please.